it exacerbates the problem and it just makes it worse. So why is it always the left shoulder? Well, those two reasons. One, it becomes a condition of scapular winging, and then we don't take care of the shoulder and address the mobility the way that we should. And by addressing the mobility, I mean we need to do chest stretches, we need to use hypervolts, massage those areas, we need to do band pull-aparts with a rubber band. What's going on, everybody? Hey, it's Oper. We got another video coming back at you, and roll the clips. Go for it.
Top 10 things I wish I knew before I started lifting. 1, your left shoulder will never feel healthy again. 2, the bigger
So as you can tell by those two clips and by the title on the board, this video's discussion will be why is it always the left shoulder? Not only do I see numerous posts about this topic on Instagram, YouTube, I have also had several conversations in person over the last several years as to why people say, why is it always my left shoulder? Why is it always the left shoulder? And the answer is simple. However, correcting it, there's a few more steps to that problem. And the answer is scapular winging. We will revisit that notion here momentarily. We need to discuss a few items first though. With respect to the left shoulder, we need to account for an item called neural drive. And neural drive is going to be the discharge activity of the muscle that we currently have. And I've discussed motor neurons before in several videos. We will briefly review that right now. So if we have the brain, we've got your spinal column right here. If we have a muscle and the neuron comes off here, here, and we'll call it here, and we'll do one more. Okay, so these are the motor neurons that sends acetylchlorine to the tissue, which is the neurotransmitter. It tells that tissue to fire. And let's say this motor neuron right here is responsible for 26 fibers, and this motor neuron right here is responsible for 41 fibers, and this motor neuron right here is responsible for, we'll call that 55 fibers, and then this motor neuron down here is responsible for 16 fibers. And if there's adequate amounts of neural drive in through here, then these motor neurons are busy. They're taking the brief exchanges of the motor neuron discharge rate, and they are sending that acetylchlorine, telling the actin and myosin fibers in through here to contract and slide past each other. We can easily make the argument that the majority of people are right-handed. And so we're going to get most of the neural drive throughout the beginning portions of life, especially when we learn to write. And we will have more of the neural drive to those tissues that surround the shoulder blade. However, if we are right-handed, that means that the left hand, the left arm, is the non-dominant limb. And because it's the non-dominant limb, then we can also make the argument that there is less neural drive to the tissues on that left side. As a result, we can easily move into this condition called scapular winging. And scapular winging is when the shoulder blades create downward rotation. So to briefly discuss a few shoulder blade conditions, if we raise the shoulder blades up, that is scapular elevation. If we bring the shoulder blades down, that's scapular depression. And if we protract the shoulders, that's scapular protraction. However, downward movement of the shoulder blade looks like this. When that pec minor that inserts onto ribs 3, 4, and 5, I'll put a chart for that right here. When that pec minor gets too overactive and it pulls the shoulder blade in that downward rotation. When that starts to occur, then the serratus anterior, which helps to raise the shoulder blades in an upward fashion, we lose the neural drive on that tissue. So someone could easily walk around with one shoulder blade that sits at a perfect alignment and the other shoulder blade is heavily rotated downward. And although correlation doesn't imply causation, I see this regularly where the non-dominant limb is the limb that typically suffers the most injuries. So if we don't have the neural drive all through here, with this acetylchlorine being sent to those tissues, if we don't have that neural drive on the non-dominant limb, then of course it's going to move into some sort of deviation. In this case, with these two videos that we discussed, we start to see that scapular winging when that shoulder blade starts to rotate downward. As a result, we get overactivity in the pectoralis minor, we get an underactivity in the serratus anterior, then we start to get tightness in the anterior portion of the deltoid as well as the pectoralis major. and then the problem continues to grow. We can also get issues in the subscapularis, which is the rotator cuff muscle that internally rotates the arm. If we compound all those issues with chest exercises, I just recently did a video about the dangers of excessive chest exercises coupled with technology. I'll put a card for that right in through here. Go check that out. Please like that video as well. And also subscribe. Yes, subscribe to the channel. All sorts of free content coming your way. We see this protracted state of the shoulder blades as well as the scapular winging. And there's a tendency to see both conditions. However, there's also that tendency to just see the scapular winging in the left shoulder blade, which of course would be the non-dominant limb in most humans. So if the pectoralis major on the left side and the pec minor is more overactive than the other side, and individuals walk around like this, as opposed to keeping it back in the correct spot, and then they go and participate in the bench press, the pec deck, push-ups, the incline dumbbell press, the overhead dumbbell press, it exacerbates the problem and it just makes it worse. So why is it always the left shoulder? Well, those two reasons. One, it becomes a condition of scapular winging because of the fact that the left limb is usually the non-dominant limb, and then we don't take care of the shoulder and address the mobility the way that we should. And by addressing the mobility, I mean we need to do chest stretches, we need to use hypervolts, massage those areas, we need to do band pull-aparts with a rubber band. Here's an example, taking this band right here, we go 10 degrees above the floor, and we don't necessarily pull the band apart with the arms. We use the shoulder blades and the rhomboid major and minor to pull the band all the way across the chest. We can also take the band and we can go palm up, and we can create the external rotation and get the posterior part of the rotator cuff tissues much stronger. Because of course we don't want to not use the tissues in that left side of our arm, because then we're going to be winded up looking like Brutus over here. And he's throwing the erasers on the floor as well.
Erased from existence.
Yes, I blamed you on that. So back to this idea of why is it always the left shoulder? Again, it is because of the scapular winging that occurs, arguably due to the fact that the left side of the body in the upper extremities is usually the non-dominant limb. We don't have the neural drive unless we practice it otherwise to keep that shoulder blade in the correct spot. So keeping that upper rotation of the shoulder blades is critical to keep ourselves injury free. We can do all the stretches in the world, all the mobility, all the massage, all the corrective work, but if we walk around throughout the day and we have an asymmetry in our shoulders, hey baby, and we create that downward rotation and we don't even know it, it negates all that work that we just did. So that is a brief explanation as to why we typically see posts and conversations about why is it always my left shoulder. That scapular winging is a big problem that we need to negate and prevent. So continue with the band pull apart exercises, the rowing. If we sit at desks, if you can use a stand-up desk, please do that. Keep that upper rotation in the shoulder blades present as much as possible. Keep the ear in line with the shoulder, hip, knee, and ankle when we stand, as opposed to protracting forward. And that will be a great start to curing this problem, if you will. I'll do a video later on actual stretches and some of the drills that you can do to help negate and prevent the scapular winging. So be on the lookout for that. For now, please like this video, subscribe, share this content on other platforms, and we will see you all next time.